What if a single empty chair at a wedding could change the entire course of your life? Imagine sitting quietly at the forgotten table in the back, convinced no one will notice you. Then, out of nowhere, a stranger with piercing eyes and a presence that seems to bend the entire room chooses that very seat, beside you. Emma never thought her life would collide with someone like him. She was just a florist, used to blending into the background, arranging flowers for other people's celebrations. But the man who sat next to her wasn't just another guest. He carried secrets, power, and a story that would soon turn her quiet world into something she could barely recognize. And as their paths intertwined, Emma would discover that sometimes, the most unexpected meetings hold the most extraordinary truths. The ballroom glowed with crystal chandeliers and laughter that didn't quite reach Emma's corner. She had been placed at table number 7. Far from the spotlight, far from the crowd that mattered. From her seat, the world of luxury unfolded like a scene from a movie she didn't belong in. Silk gowns shimmered, champagne glasses clinked, and the orchestra's music swelled. Emma adjusted the strap of her modest dress, reminding herself she was only here because she had done the flowers for the bride. She was just a guest of circumstance, someone no one expected to notice. And for a while, she was invisible, until he arrived. A tall man with striking confidence scanned the room, then, to Emma's surprise, slid into the empty chair beside her. His presence was magnetic, the kind that instantly shifts the air around him. People glanced in their direction, some even whispering, but Emma pretended not to notice. For the first time that night, she wasn't invisible anymore. She felt the weight of his attention, the spark of something she couldn't name. And though she didn't know it yet, this chance encounter at table 7 was the beginning of a story that would change everything. He leaned closer, offering a polite smile that carried just enough mystery to make Emma's pulse quicken. Sebastian, he introduced himself, his voice deep yet surprisingly warm. The name hung in the air like it belonged to someone important, though he delivered it as if it were nothing at all. His suit was tailored to perfection, his watch gleamed under the chandelier light, and yet, it wasn't his wealth that struck Emma first. It was the way he looked at her, as if she were the only person worth noticing in that crowded room. While the other guests boasted about vacations and business deals, Sebastian asked Emma about her. What she did. What she loved. And for the first time in a long time, she felt seen, not as the florist in the background, not as the quiet girl at the forgotten table, but as someone who mattered. Still, there was something she couldn't ignore. Waiters gave him deferential nods, guests stole curious glances, and conversations seemed to pause when he passed. Who exactly was this man who carried power so effortlessly, yet spoke with such ease? Emma didn't know the answer yet. But she would soon learn that Sebastian Blackwood wasn't just another charming stranger. He was a man whose world was built on secrets, and she was already stepping into it. The more Emma spoke with Sebastian, the more she realized how carefully he chose his words. He listened intently, asked questions that made her feel important, but when she tried to turn the spotlight back on him, his answers were vague. I run a few companies, he said casually, as though it were nothing more than a side job. He brushed it off with a smile that only deepened the mystery. But Emma noticed details others might miss. The suit wasn't just expensive, it was custom-tailored. The watch on his wrist wasn't an accessory, it was the kind of timepiece worth more than her entire shop. Even the staff treated him differently, lowering their voices, stepping just a little quicker when he was nearby. Still, Sebastian never flaunted any of it. Instead, he looked at Emma like she was the most interesting thing in the room. His charm was disarming, almost dangerous, because it left her both enchanted and suspicious. Who hides behind such a perfect smile? As the night went on, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that Sebastian was holding something back. And soon, she'd discover that his carefully guarded secrets weren't just about wealth, they were about an entire world she never imagined herself stepping into. As the evening stretched on, the music softened into a slow, elegant melody. Emma had fully expected to remain a wallflower, but then Sebastian stood and extended his hand. "Dance with me," he said, not as a question but as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Her first instinct was to refuse. She wasn't the type who belonged on a dance floor surrounded by glittering gowns and polished shoes. But something in his eyes told her this wasn't about impressing anyone else. It was about them. So she placed her hand in his. And in that instant, the ballroom blurred away. The chatter, the flashing smiles, the judgmental glances, all of it melted into the background. For the first time, Emma wasn't the invisible florist. She was a woman who mattered. Their conversation carried on after the music stopped. He asked to see her again, not in the rehearsed way of someone making a polite gesture, but with an urgency that made her heart race. Emma felt torn between disbelief and excitement. How could someone like him be so interested in someone like her? Yet deep down, she couldn't deny the truth, something had shifted. What began as a chance encounter at table 7 was already spiraling into something larger, something she could neither predict nor resist. Their second meeting wasn't in a crowded ballroom. It was in the gleaming heart of the city, where Sebastian arrived with a driver who opened the door of a sleek black car. Emma froze for a moment, realizing just how different his world truly was. Dinner wasn't at a cozy cafe or a casual spot. It was at a rooftop restaurant where the waiters seemed to know his name before he even spoke it. The skyline stretched endlessly behind him, and suddenly his vague answer from the wedding, "I run a few companies," didn't feel so casual anymore. Finally, after watching her eyes widen at the world he lived in, Sebastian leaned forward. His voice was calm, steady, but his words carried a weight Emma couldn't ignore. "I think it's time you know who I really am. I'm Sebastian Blackwood, CEO of Blackwood Industries." The name struck her like a wave. She had heard it before, who hadn't? It was plastered across headlines, whispered in business circles, attached to wealth and influence that reached far beyond the city. Emma's heart raced. She wasn't just having dinner with a charming stranger. She was sitting across from one of the most powerful men in the country. And while his confession answered her questions, it left her with a new fear. How could someone like her possibly fit into a world like his? But before she could pull away, Sebastian said something that stopped her. "Emma, I wanted you to know me before you knew all of this. Because with you, I'm not the billionaire. I'm just a man who found someone worth noticing." Emma couldn't ignore the weight of Sebastian's confession. Every part of her wanted to retreat, to remind herself she was just a florist with nothing in common with billion-dollar boardrooms and magazine covers. Yet, when she looked into his eyes, she didn't see the CEO of Blackwood Industries. She saw the same man who had chosen table 7, the one who noticed her when no one else did. A week later, he invited her away, not to a gala, not to a high-rise penthouse, but to his secluded lake cabin. The drive was long, the road winding, but when they arrived, Emma was stunned. There were no chandeliers, no drivers, no staff. Just quiet woods, the glimmer of water, and a man who finally seemed to breathe. There, Sebastian wasn't the polished billionaire. He cooked simple meals, teased her about her stubbornness, and even burned pancakes on their first morning. And one night, as they sat by the fire, he told her the truth behind his perfect smile. He spoke of the crushing expectations of his childhood, the loneliness of being admired but never known, and the endless battle of trust in a world where everyone wanted something from him. His voice cracked when he admitted that with Emma, things felt different. She was the first person in years who saw him, not the empire, not the headlines, just him. Emma realized something in that moment. Love wasn't about the worlds they came from. It was about the one they could build together. And even if the path ahead was uncertain, she knew one thing: she wasn't ready to let him go. Fairy tales never survive untouched by reality. As Emma and Sebastian grew closer, the world around them began to notice. And the world was not kind. Whispers turned into headlines. Tabloids plastered her picture next to his, calling her the mystery woman and questioning what she could possibly offer a man like Sebastian Blackwood. The business press speculated that she was a distraction, while socialites sneered that she didn't belong. Even in her own life, Emma felt the shift. Friends warned her to be careful, insisting that billionaires didn't fall for ordinary women without hidden agendas. Customers at her flower shop treated her with sudden curiosity, asking questions that were less about roses and more about him. But the hardest moments weren't public, they were private. At glittering galas and business dinners, Emma could feel the weight of judgmental stares. She'd smooth the hem of her dress, praying no one noticed her trembling hands. And sometimes, in the quiet of her small apartment, she wondered if maybe they were right, if maybe she didn't belong in his world at all. Yet every time doubt threatened to pull her under, Sebastian's actions spoke louder. He never hid her. He stood beside her at events, proudly introducing her, making it clear she was not just a passing fancy. When criticism reached its loudest, he looked her in the eye and said, "They can question everything else, Emma. But they'll never make me question you." Still, the pressure mounted. And though their love was strong, one question lingered over them like a storm waiting to break. Was love enough to survive the weight of two colliding worlds? 6 months after that night at Table 7, Emma found herself back at the lake cabin, the place where Sebastian had first let her see beyond the walls of his empire. Only this time, something was different. The path to the cabin was lined with lanterns, their warm glow reflecting across the water. Inside, roses filled the room, white, blush, crimson, arranged with such care that Emma almost laughed through her tears. Flowers had always been her world, yet now they were a part of his gesture, his language of love. Sebastian stood at the center of it all, no suit, no boardroom mask, just a man holding a small velvet box. His hands trembled as he opened it, and for once, his practiced confidence fell away. "Emma," he said softly, "from the moment I sat at that forgotten table, I stopped feeling invisible too. You saw me. The real me. And I don't want to imagine my life without that." Tears blurred her vision as he sank to one knee. "Will you marry me?" The answer tumbled from her lips before fear could intervene. Yes. Months later, on their wedding day, Emma walked down the aisle no longer the quiet girl at the back of the room. She was radiant, celebrated, and deeply loved. Guests whispered again, but this time, it wasn't about whether she belonged, it was about the undeniable bond that had silenced every doubt. Because Emma and Sebastian had proven something that night, love isn't defined by wealth, power, or the glitter of chandeliers. It's defined by the courage to choose each other, even when the world tries to pull you apart. And so, what began at the forgotten Table 7 became a love story no one could have predicted. A florist who thought she was invisible, and a billionaire who carried the weight of an empire, two people from opposite worlds who dared to see each other for who they truly were. Emma's story is proof that sometimes the most extraordinary moments are born in the most ordinary places. That love doesn't ask about status, wealth, or power, it simply asks if you're brave enough to choose it. So the next time you find yourself overlooked, sitting quietly in the corner, remember this: all it takes is one unexpected encounter to rewrite your entire story. But here's the question: if love came knocking at your door from a world you never thought you belonged to, would you be willing to take the risk?